You're with Dr. Nita Chhinzer, and in this episode, we're getting a brief introduction to the Canadian workplace. We need to understand that diversity to become better managers, entrepreneurs, and human resource professionals. Canada is a diverse country with people of different backgrounds, but also a diverse country with businesses of varying sizes, industries, goals, and geographies. Here's a snapshot of Canadian employers. Let's start with what the Canadian employment population looks like. In 2023, Canada was home to roughly 4 million people, of which 21.5 million were part of the labor force. What does it mean to be part of the labor force? This means you are a civilian who's non-institutionalized and 15 and older who is employed or currently looking for work. For Canadian employers, that means that is our external and internal labor market. In addition, there were 1.4 million people in Canada on temporary work permits in 2023. That number actually surprises me because it was 6.5% of the labor force. Roughly 1 out of every 15 workers was here on some form of temporary work permit. A mix of low birth rates and improved healthcare means that the populations, both inside and outside of Canada, are getting older on average, and this puts stress on a country's labor market, healthcare needs, and pension systems. Canada specific, the fertility rate has been decreasing for decades, and it hit a record low of 1.33 children per woman in 2022. Declining birth rates is a global issue. Globally, the fertility rate in 2019 was 2.4, and that means essentially how many children each woman has in their lifetime. And that number in 2019 was down from 4.7 in 1950. Regarding aging, in 1980, the average age of Canadians was 32.8 years old, and the median was 29.1, so we were a roughly young and healthy, labor force-ready population. By 2000, the average age increased to 37.5, and by 2022, it was 41.7 years old. So we are an aging population. What do we do in an environment where our labor force is constrained by low fertility rates and an aging population? Well, from January 2022 to 2023, Canada had a record high population growth of 2.7%, almost all attributed to international migration. In fact, 95.9% of the population growth was attributed to migration. So Canada is looking outside of its border to find people to join the labor force. It's also important to note that in Canada there's 2 official languages, French and English, meaning that businesses must be conducted in at least one of these 2 languages. How is Canadian employment organized? Employers must abide by the employment legislation of their jurisdiction, which defines the terms and conditions of employment, occupational health and safety rules, and a lot of rules that are specific to that jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is a geographic location. In Canada, there are 3 territories and 10 provinces, plus 1 federal-level jurisdiction for employment, for a total of 14 jurisdictions. That means employers need to be aware of what the rules are in their specific jurisdiction. Federal jurisdiction includes employees working for employers with trans-Canada operations, such as Canada Post, air transportation, port services, radio and television broadcasting, Parliament, etc. Roughly 9 to 10% of the workforce is employed at the federal jurisdiction level. Now, the size of Canada's population and labor force also varies based on the geography. Ontario has the largest labor force, over 8.5 million people, representing about 40% of Canada's 21.5 million persons in the labor force. Quebec is the second largest, at 4.75 million people, and BC, British Columbia, was close to 3 million people in their labor force. Most employment in Canada is full-time, ranging from about 80% in British Columbia to almost 86% in New Brunswick. Nationally, the unemployment rate was about 5.7% in 2023, but varied based on geography. The low was 2.42% and the high was 11.73% by jurisdiction. For comparison purposes, the United Nations estimates that global unemployment rate in 2022 was 5.3%. So our 5.7% is about globally normal. How big are Canadian workplaces? Most of the 1.2 million plus employer businesses in 2021 were small businesses, 97.9% to be exact, and those employed 1 to 99 persons. In comparison, 1.9% of all employer businesses are medium-sized, meaning that they employ 100 to 499 people. and only 0.2% of Canadian businesses are large businesses employing over 500 people. Put another way, there are less than 3,000 large employers in Canada in both the private and the public sector. Small businesses employ 67% of the private labor force in 2021, compared to 20% of medium-sized businesses and 11.8% of large businesses. So while large businesses are only 0.2% of all employers, they actually account for 11.8% of all employment. In addition, 1% of Canadian enterprises are multinational enterprises, but they employ more than 1/3 of the labor force. What industries do Canadians work in? Canada is largely a service-based economy, which accounts for over 80% of employment in 2022. Forestry, lodging, as well as manufacturing experienced employment decline in the last 2 years, largely due to automation and technology, as well as globalization. The largest growth in total employment has been in construction, professional, scientific, and technical services, as well as healthcare and social assistance, which shouldn't surprise us given the aging workforce. Overall, when we think about the Canadian employment landscape, we have to look at what Canadian employers look like. And clearly, through this episode, you saw the diversity in employment opportunities and employer profiles. Clearly, one size doesn't fit all.